This video covers Morehouse's homework for RP4 Week 2. On Monday night's homework, the first thing you're asked to do is complete the table, and one row of it is actually done for you. You can see in the row that's completed, you're first being asked what was done to the unknown number, meaning what operation is happening in this equation. Let's look at C as another example. In question C, x, the unknown number, is being divided by 5. I know that it's being divided by 5 because it's in a fraction, and x over 5 is equivalent to x divided by 5. So I'm just going to write that it's being divided by 5. Now, the second column of the table says how do you undo what was done? When we started with 7x here, we undo the multiplied by 7 by dividing both sides by 7. Here, we're starting with division, so we undo our division using multiplication. We multiply by 5 in order to undo divided by 5. It looks like this. X over 5 equals 4. I'm going to multiply both sides by 5, and I end up with x by itself, because divided by 5 times 5 is like doing nothing at all. And then I have 4 times 5, which is equal to 20. And x is 20. Those are the steps you should follow to complete the table for B, D, and E. In question 2, you have a tape diagram, and you're looking to write a multiplication and division equation this diagram could represent. In question 2, what you should think about is having 3 groups of equal size, 3 groups of 18, which is equal to a total of 54. And again, make sure you get a multiplication and a division equation. Finally, in question 3, you'll simply solve each equation. There's an example in question 1 of how to solve the multiplication and division examples. It's right here in the table, here and here. You can always pause. Remember that addition and subtraction are inverse operations. So for something like n plus 8 equals 18, we would solve by doing the inverse operation on both sides to get n by itself, and n equals 10. Those are the steps to solve for addition. If we started with subtraction, your inverse operation would of course be addition. That's Monday night's homework. On Tuesday night's homework, question 1 says, determine whether the given number is a solution to the inequality. That should say equation. It was copied from another problem. Show your work. Let's look at an example of how I would do this in question A. Question A says 42 divided by x, because remember, the fraction means division. 42 divided by x equals 6. So I can rewrite this equation by dividing 42 divided by 7, which is equal to 6. I know that that's true, and so I'll write yes. Notice how I showed my work by rewriting the original equation and replacing x, the variable, with a number. You should do the same thing for B through F. In question 2, you're being asked to solve the equations. This is the same as the end of Monday night's homework, which I just demonstrated, or you could see in question 1 from Monday night's homework as well. It may help you to draw a line through each equal sign to remind you that you need to do the same thing on both sides. Finally, we have question 3. It says, determine whether the given number is a solution to the inequality. Write yes if it's a solution, and no if it is not. Show your work. When I say show your work, I mean that if x is 15, I want to rewrite the equation. X minus 7 is now 15 minus 7. Once I've written 15 minus 7, I can calculate whether 15 minus 7 is actually greater than 8. Of course, I know that 15 minus 7 is actually equal to 8. And of course, 8 is not greater than 8. It's equal to 8. So the answer would be no. It's not a solution. Notice how all I did was rewrite the inequality with the value of the variable plugged in, or replaced, or substituted into that original inequality. This allows me to see whether that number will make the inequality true or false. Next, we have Wednesday's homework. The homework from Wednesday night reviews what we've been learning in our mini lessons about statistics. Question 1. A teacher drew a line segment that was 20 inches long on her blackboard. She asked each of her students to estimate the length of the segment and use their estimates to draw this line plot. A. How many students were in the class? Remember that each dot on a dot plot represents a student. So I know that one student estimated 16 inches, 3 students estimated 17, 1 estimated 18, and so on. If you count all the dots, you can determine the total number of students in the class. To see how many students guessed the length correctly, you would want to see how many students guessed that the length was 20. Question 2. Priya recorded the number of attempts it took each of her 12 classmates to successfully throw a ball into a basket. Make a dot plot of Priya's data. If you are stuck, use the dot plot in question 1. Of course, you're on the video, so that should help. We know that our dot plot needs to start with a number line that's labeled 1 through 5, because those are the numbers included in our data. I'm going to count how many 1s there were in Priya's responses. Looks like 4. That means I need 4 dots above the 1. I'm going to label my dot plot baskets made, because it says baskets successfully thrown. And you would repeat this process for 2, 3, and 4, putting the correct number of dots over each number. Question 3. Claire recorded the amount of time spent doing homework in hours per week by students in the 6th, 8th, and 10th grades. She made a dot plot of data for each grade and provided the following summary. Students in 6th grade tend to spend less time on homework than students in 8th and 10th. The homework times for the 10th grade students are more alike than the homework times for the 8th grade students. Use Claire's summary to match each dot plot to the correct grade. In other words, your job is to see which of these graphs belongs to 6th grade, 8th grade, and 10th grade using this information. Think about the key points here. Students in 6th spend less time. The homework times for the 10th graders are more alike, meaning they're alike to each other. The 8th grade students, so the 8th grade, you know, will be more spread out. Make sure that you clearly label A, B, and C with 6th, 8th, or 10th grade. Finally, we have Thursday night's homework. On Thursday night, your first task is to match the histograms to the dot plots. Match histograms A through E to dot plots 1 through 5 so that each match represents the same data set. Here's how we want to think about this. In histogram A, I know that my data ranges from a 5 to a 30. I know that histogram A definitely doesn't match dot plot 1 because there are no dots over 5, 10, 15, 20. So that data couldn't possibly be the same. You're looking for numbers that roughly match or represent a similar set of information. For example, I can see that the highest point in graph A, histogram A, is 30. In dot plot 3, the highest point is also 30. And the lowest is 5. To be more specific, in histogram A, I can see that the highest range is from 25 to 30. And in dot plot 3, I can see that the highest range is also 25 to 30. because that's the greatest range that includes a plotted point. That means that histogram A matches dot plot 3. And this is generally the process you'll want to use to determine the matches. Then I'd make sure to check them off as I go. In question 2, you've got another histogram. This time, it summarizes the lengths in feet of a group of adult female sharks. Select all the statements that are true according to the histogram. A total of 9 sharks were measured. We can tell the total number of sharks that were measured based on the height of the bar diagrams. I know that there was 1 shark between 13 and 13.5, 1 shark between 13.5 and 14, 4 sharks between 14 and 14.5, and so on. I can determine the size of each of the bars. That will allow me to tell whether A or B is true. You'll want to look closely at the histogram to determine whether C, D, E are true as well, using the same process. Thinking through how many observations are there for each length. For example, between 16 and 16.5 feet, there were 10 sharks measured. That's how we interpret a histogram. Finally, in question 3, you're being asked to draw a histogram. The hint I want to give you here is that you'll start with a X and Y axis. And I would recommend counting by 2s. You want to go all the way up to 16. And here you'll need to count by 1s all the way up to 13 so that you make sure you can cover a frequency of 13. That's the homework helper for this week. As always, if you need extra support, be sure to check in with me before Friday.